Dr. Melissa Ilardo's research centers on the Bajjo people, also known as sea nomads, in Indonesia. These traditionally nomadic spear fishermen live primarily on houseboats, relying extensively on the ocean's resources for survival. They are renowned for their exceptional breath-hold diving capabilities, a lifestyle trait passed down over thousands of years amidst abundant marine environments created by Indonesia's vast archipelago. The Bajjo's ability to dive deeply and hold their breath for remarkably long durations is not merely a skill, but seems to have a biological underpinning that sets them apart from other human populations. This niche lifestyle and consistent selective pressure sparked Dr. Ilardo's interest in how natural selection might be influencing their evolution in a contemporary human context. Unlike many modern populations who depend less on natural environmental adaptations, the Bajjo provide a rare living example where evolution may still shape human physiology directly related to their aquatic lifestyle. Key physiological traits, such as breath-hold endurance, athleticism underwater, and adaptations to hypoxic conditions, seem to have emerged through reproductive success and survival advantages tied to diving proficiency. One of the most compelling discoveries Dr. Ilardo highlights is the enlarged spleen found in the Bajjo divers. The spleen acts as an oxygen reservoir by storing red blood cells that can be released into the bloodstream during breath-hold diving, dramatically increasing oxygen availability. This biological scuba tank mechanism plays a functional role in prolonging dive time and helps reduce risk when engaging in risky underwater hunting. The research involved ultrasound measurements taken with a portable machine in remote Indonesian villages. A key methodological consideration was distinguishing whether enlarged spleens were a direct consequence of diving, acquired through training, or a genetic adaptation. By comparing active divers with non-divers of the same genetic background and with nearby non-diving populations, Dr. Ilardo's team established that enlarged spleens were genetically inherited rather than environmentally induced. This finding underscores the presence of evolved human physiologies shaped by traditional subsistence strategies. Beyond spleen size, Dr. Ilardo discusses genetic adaptations related to vasoconstriction, a physiological response that restricts blood flow to less critical extremities during dives, prioritizing oxygen delivery to vital organs like the brain and heart. The Bajjo genome revealed evolutionary changes in genes linked to blood vessel constriction, suggesting that multiple aspects of the diving reflex have been fine-tuned by natural selection. Although direct measurements of vasoconstriction were not part of Dr. Ilardo's study, the genetic signals offer promising directions for future research to understand how these populations optimize oxygen use and safeguard critical tissues during prolonged submerged periods. These physiological systems collectively form an intricate diving defense mechanism that supports extended underwater activity with increased safety. Determining how long the Bajjo have engaged in their aquatic lifestyle proved complex due to sparse historical records. Earliest written accounts date back roughly 500 years, describing sea nomads living a mobile lifestyle on the water. Linguistic reconstructions, however, suggest that Bajjo diving traditions may stretch back thousands of years, correlating with the stable marine environments around Indonesia. By integrating genetic data with linguistic and historical insights, Dr. Ilardo and her colleagues proposed that the Bajjo's physiological adaptations evolved within the last few thousand years. This relatively recent evolution highlights how human populations can rapidly adapt to environmental pressures when a strong selective force, such as the need for breath-hold diving, remains steady over generations. Dr. Ilardo expands the discussion by comparing the Bajjo to other global populations exhibiting specialized aquatic adaptations. Similar breath-hold diving cultures exist in Southeast Asia, Korea, Australia, South America, and Panama. Among them, a notable example is the Korean Haenyeo women, female divers who perform lifelong breath-hold diving, even during pregnancy, often diving until giving birth. These global populations highlight diverse evolutionary pathways in response to maritime hunting lifestyles, exhibiting unique physiological traits such as heart rate reduction during dives and adaptations to cold water exposure. Variations in technology usage, such as homemade spear guns and traditional cotton diving suits, further emphasize the cultural aspect intertwined with biological evolution in these communities. Central to the adaptations observed is the human dive reflex, which involves a set of coordinated physiological responses, including spleen contraction, slowing of heart rate, and peripheral vasoconstriction. Dr. Ilardo explains that this reflex is not exclusive to humans, but conserved across all mammals, even observed experimentally in mice. The dive reflex can be enhanced through training demonstrated by slower heart rates among frequent divers when submerged in cold water. Such responses reduce oxygen consumption and prioritize vital organ function during breath holds. This reflex acts as a foundation on which specific genetic adaptations, like spleen size enlargement, build, enabling certain humans like the Bajjo to push breath hold limits far beyond the average person. A critical question addressed concerns whether diving ability and related adaptations, such as spleen size, result from genetic inheritance or environmental conditioning. Dr. Ilardo's research design controlled for this by testing both diving and non-diving Bajjo individuals who share a common genetic background but differ in diving experience. Findings suggest that while training may offer minor physiological tweaks, inherited genetic factors primarily determine traits like spleen size. This distinction clarifies that some adaptive traits are not a product of practice, but rather selection for favorable genotypes that enhance survival and reproductive success in aquatic environments. Dr. Ilardo introduces the concept of superhuman populations, groups within humanity who have evolved extraordinary physiological traits tailored to their environments, like Bajjo divers, high-altitude Tibetans, or Arctic Inuit. These populations offer valuable insights beyond medical disease-focused research, showcasing extreme human phenotypic variation resulting from natural selection. She emphasizes the value of celebrating unique adaptations rather than stigmatizing populations based on disease or perceived abnormalities. Studying these extremes expands understanding of human physiology and evolution, shining light on how environment and culture actively shape genetic diversity, even today. Discussing human ancestry, Dr. Ilardo touches on important historical concepts such as genetic bottlenecks, including the out-of-Africa migration, which dramatically reduced genetic diversity outside Africa. Despite the vast population today, modern humans share a surprisingly limited effective population size from a few thousand ancestors. Gene flow between archaic human groups, such as interbreeding with Denisovans and Neanderthals, also shaped modern human genetics, for example, by transferring altitude-adaptive genes to Tibetans. These evolutionary events reflect how genetic diversity is sculpted by both isolation and mixing, a process ongoing today, with globalization creating novel gene combinations unseen in evolutionary history. Dr. Ilardo contemplates how current rapid environmental changes, such as climate instability, pollution, and chemical exposure, complicate human evolution. Unlike steady selective pressures favoring specific traits, such chaotic changes create conflicting demands, making adaptation more complex and potentially slower. Further, she discusses reproductive health challenges in modern humans, including declining sperm counts and infertility linked to environmental toxins like microplastics and pesticides. These factors may interfere with natural selection and could lead to bottlenecks or shifts in population genetics with unpredictable consequences. Advances in genome editing technologies, especially CRISPR, open potential for directly altering human genetics to prevent diseases or enhance traits. Dr. Ilardo notes successes and challenges with precision and unintended off-target effects, but stresses the ethical complexity involved in deciding when and how to intervene. She raises concerns over applications such as embryo selection and gene therapy, warning against reliance on mere correlations rather than causal relationships in genetics research. The field demands caution to avoid erasing beneficial or culturally significant genetic diversity under flawed assumptions, underscoring the tension between scientific possibility and moral responsibility. The discussion concludes with reflections on human intelligence and evolution's direction. Dr. Ilardo challenges the notion of evolution as a linear progression toward better or smarter humans, emphasizing adaptation to environment rather than advancement. Intelligence is multifaceted, influenced by genetics, but deeply shaped by culture, education, and environment, making it difficult to define or enhance genetically at present. She also considers future scenarios shaped by cultural evolution and technology, such as possible shifts away from biological reproduction toward engineered offspring, potentially rewriting evolutionary rules. The interplay of biological and cultural forces creates a dynamic landscape where human bodies and societies continue to evolve in unpredictable ways.